All right, as noted, this is now being a recorded meeting. I will now pass the mic to Stephanie to open the steering committee.
All right, good evening, everyone. The AB 617 South Sacramento, Florida Steering Committee meeting is officially open for January 27th, 2025. I'm gonna go ahead and pass it to our interpreter.
Hi, good evening. My name is Christina, one of the linguistic interpreters here with my partner Claudia. We have our interpreters online, Diana and Tanya. I will be giving those interpretation instructions in both English and Spanish. So if you're a monolingual English speaker, please select the worldwide interpretation icon at the bottom of the screen, then select English. If you're using Zoom via telephone or tablet, select the three dots to see more options, followed by interpretation and then English. And do not mute your audio. Now I will be giving those instructions in Spanish. Hola, buenas tardes. Yo soy Cristina y tengo aquí mi compañera Claudia y en Zoom tenemos a nuestros intérpretes Tania y Diana. Las instrucciones para el Zoom en español es que si van a seleccionar el icono de interpretación que aparece en un mundo en la parte inferior de la pantalla. Luego seleccione español y no se les olvide silenciar el audio original. Si está usando Zoom en un teléfono o tableta, seleccionará los 3 puntos para ver más opciones, seguido por interpretación y después español. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. This is Nicholas Towns. I'm the facilitator for tonight, and my co-facilitator Britta is also here to help out. We are going to go to the slide to go over some in-person and virtual logistics. Just want to clarify and remind everyone that the order of operation will be that we do action and communication efforts in person first, and then we will go to virtual. So everyone's voice will be heard. For those who are virtual, you can always raise your virtual hand or leave your comments in the chat box feature. We will have staff monitoring that and allowing for conversations to be captured there as well. But if you would like to make a auditory comment, you can either raise your hand virtually or put your comment in the chat or put your request to have a raised hand in the chat if you're having issues with that feature. On this slide, you can see how to access that feature virtually. If you're on the phone, what you're going to do is go ahead and press *9 to raise your virtual hand, and then you press *6 when we call on you to unmute yourself. We do have a packed agenda, but we will be making time for public comments throughout today's agenda. We also will be linking the Spanish slides in the chat tonight. So if you would like to have access to that, you can do so through the virtual chat. We want to go over the code of conduct, make sure that we all remember that we are all, at the end of the day, friends here, we are all here for the same interest. And so let's treat each other with the same respect. Please make sure if you haven't to review the code of conduct charter. And then we do have a packed agenda, and with the delay in our technology, we will have an even more packed agenda. So we do ask everyone to honor each other's time. If there's time limits to comments, please keep your comments to those time limits. And for the sake of those who are joining us virtually, as well as just your friends here in person, let's make sure that we don't talk over each other. For the steering committee members, remember to invert your name tags if you have a question or comments, and we will address those. For those visiting us from the public tonight, you can always raise your hand, but let's make sure that we only have one person talking at a time and to respect the time allotted. I will now pass it over to Stephanie, who will lead us through the roll call today.
All right, again, good evening, everyone. Stephanie Williams, co-lead for our AB 617 South Sacramento, Florida Steering Committee. We will now take roll. I'm going to start with our steering committee members. If you can please identify yourself when you hear your name by stating present. Starting with Bishop Chris Baker.
Here.
Tito Home.
Here.
Vincent Valdez.
Here.
Stephen Street. Reina Moreno. Richard Falcon.
Here.
Richard Lincoln. Ward Winchell.
Richard Lincoln is here.
Richard Lincoln is here. Thank you. Barry Boyd. Morgan Brown.
I am here. Sorry, I'm actually having a little technical difficulty on my end. I am
All right, thank
here
you.
representing Sacramento Environmental Justice Coalition.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Barry. Good evening. Lori Walker. Morgan Brown.
Present.
Roberto Rizzo. Jamala Green.
Present.
Thank you. We have a new steering committee, Serena Rodriguez. Okay. I understand that she'll be joining us in the second half, and then we also have a new steering committee member, James Allison.
Present.
Present. All right. Thank
Oh,
you.
Stephanie. is up.
Are you present? Stephanie?
And I am also present. Stephanie Williams is present. All right, so I have completed the roll call for our steering committee members. I would also like to acknowledge our Sac Metro Air District staff that are in the room. If you can wave your hand or say present so all know who you are. We have Janice Lamb.
Yeah, sorry, just for the record, steering committee co-leads and steering committee members, we do have quorum. We have 12 present steering committee members. We do have another steering committee member that we're listing as not present, but she might join halfway through, and at that moment, we will add her to the roll call.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that. So again, I'm gonna go back and acknowledge our Sac Metro Air District staff, starting with Janice.
Here.
All right, Sarah,
Here.
Leah Colon,
Here.
Amy Roberts, Jaime Lemos,
Here.
Mark Lucenheiser,
Here.
Paul Philly,
Here.
Brian Krebs,
Here.
Carolyn Tran, and Cody Hess. All right. Did we have Carolyn Tran?
Yes, she says that she has no voice at the moment, but she's online.
All right, wonderful, wonderful. Now for our CARB staff, just want to acknowledge our CARB staff. Adriana Smith. All right, thank you. Sharanya V.
Yes, I'm here. Good evening, everybody.
All right, wonderful. Abhishek Diamond.
I'm good.
All right, thank you. All right. And then, of course, we know our facilitators, Nicholas Towns and Britta Romans. They've introduced themselves. Also want to acknowledge our local agency staff, City of Sacramento.
Here.
All right, wonderful. And then also, local agency staff, City of Elk Grove. All right, thank you. And your name? Okay, thank you. All right, I believe that we have acknowledged everyone in the room.
Perfect. We now will open up opportunity for the public in the room that would like to be on record. Raise your hand and we will do introductions for you. If, all right, see you. And then if you're online and you're a member of the public, please go ahead and raise your virtual hand as well, and we'll get to you after those in person. For those in person and online, when naming, introducing yourself, please, your name and your affiliation so that we can have that on record as well.
Erica Jaramillo, a resident of South Sacramento and also a member of the South Sacramento Community Planning Advisory Council.
Any other public members in person that would like to introduce themselves? Seeing none, do we have any virtual hands up for this item? Seeing none, if you're online and you're having any issues with the technology, please put your name and affiliation in the chat and we will talk back. Oh, wait, I do see one, Jennifer Holden, go ahead.
Yes, good evening, everybody. My name is Jennifer Holden. I am an advisor for the Sacramento Environmental Justice Coalition. I am also the neighborhood association leader for the Mengen Park Neighborhood Association, which is within the AB 617 boundaries. And it's good to be here this evening. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Jennifer. Is that Armand or can't see you from here? Go ahead.
Hi, this is Herman Barahona, community organizer with the Sacramento Environmental Justice Coalition.
Excellent, thank you. And we have a chat member, someone in the chat, Jose Valdano from SOSAC president. Any others? If your hand's raised, you've already made comment, please lower your hands, use the same function as the raised hand feature. All right, seeing no others, is there any community events that anyone would like to share? We're trying to keep these to under 30 seconds, but any community events that would like to be shared in person? Raise your hand or not. All right, any community events online that would like to be shared at this time? Seeing none, we will then pass it back to Stephanie to go over our meeting minutes.
All right, welcome back. It's me again. So we are going to start with our administrative items. Administrative item A is the approval of the meeting summary. Included in your packet is the meeting summary from Monday, December 16th, 2024. Not only is it in your packet, but it also went out via email ahead of time. And so at this time, I would like to make ask if there is any motions to accept the meeting summary. All right, we have one motion.
Second.
And we have a second, all right. A motion and a second. I am going to go around and I will just do a roll call for our steering committee members. And we will vote. The first motion was Roberto Rizzo, second motion was Vincent Valdez. All right, so motion to approve the meeting minutes from Monday, December 16th. And now we will go through with our steering committee member vote, starting with Bishop Chris Baker.
Yes.
Thank you. Tito Home.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Vincent Valdez,
Yes.
Stephen Street. Raina Moreno. Richard Lincoln.
I'll abstain because Ward attended the last meeting.
Okay, thank you. Barry Boyd.
Aye.
Thank you. Morgan Brown.
Yes.
Lori Walker.
Yes.
Roberto Rizzo.
Yes.
Jamala Green.
Yes.
Serena Rodriguez. I think she showed later. James Allison.
Abstain.
Thank you. And Stephanie Williams. Yes, motion to approve. All right. Thank you.
We have 9 yeses, 2 abstentions. And no nos. So the motion carries for the meeting minutes to be approved, accepted. Now, we'll pass it on to Vincent for our administrative item C, holding nomination and voting procedures.
Okay, everybody, and I want to welcome James. We didn't get the chance to meet before, and thanks for volunteering to be on our committee.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you. Membership updates. Number 1 is Rhonda Henderson has resigned, and I wanted to make a special mention to thank Rhonda for all her service to the community and the different hats that she wears. She's the president of our neighborhood association. She has a Saturday noon chess club she does for kids over here down the street on Power Inn and Mac on the Power In and Center Parkway, I believe, and then, she was also our, lead person for our outreach subcommittee from inception. She helped us get our website going, and, she was a committed member of this steering committee from day one, so thank you, Rhonda, for all your hard work. Membership updates, that's it? Yeah, and now we're gonna go to Janice.
Yes, next item will be going over the lead nomination and voting procedures.
Great. Happy New Year, everyone. So in January, we do start our co-lead, nominations and voting. Today is when we're gonna be starting our voting procedures. We're gonna have, the next slide on slide 14. Is a little bit on, the co-lead roles per the charter that the steering committee has adopted. I also want to, start off by thanking Stephanie and Vincent, who has been such great leaders for us in the last couple of years in going through, transitioning to the SERP and all the monitoring discussions. So I really want to thank you for your time and answering all my calls when needed. So on the slide that you see here, are some of the co-lead leadership duties. I think Vincent and Stephanie shared a little bit about that last meeting, so I won't go deep into detail. But there is a lot of time, I think, that you all will, work with us in terms of building the agendas, facilitating the meetings and such. So next slide, on slide 15. So the nominations can be made during this administrative item. So in your packet, for those who are here, you have a co-lead election ballot with 2 names. One is Morgan Brown. The second is Roberto Rizzo, who has volunteered and accepted the nominations. We are accepting nominations right now, and the nominations need to be accepted by the member who has been nominated during this item prior to voting. So in your packet here, you can submit your vote in our little box up there. For those who are online and not here present in the meeting, you can also send an email to the clerk with the 2 names that you would like to vote for the co-leads, and they will be due February 3rd of 2025. So 5 p.m. Is that next Monday? Yeah, that's next Monday. And then the results of the election will be announced via email. The district is going to tally the votes, but the votes will remain anonymous for those who are putting in their votes. That's it.
So just to clarify again, if you're in person, like to make a vote, there's a ballot box. If there's any nominations that would like to be made now, that would be the last opportunity before we get to our action items. And then depending on if the members have voted, there will either be the 2 names or additional names. And then no matter if you vote, actually, if you make your vote now, that's captured, whether in person or online, February 3rd, Monday at 5, next Monday will be the final deadline for votes to come in. Perfect. With that, we will move on to agenda item 2. This will go our action items. Agenda item 2A is the CERT timeline presentation. We have Roberto who will lead this area off.
Pardon me, Mike, I have a question for you. Are you going to ask folks if we have a question?
Yes, are there any questions related to that?
Could you repeat it? It's hard to hear you.
Yes, are there any questions related to that item?
If you just ask, are there questions? I do have one.
Yes.
I'm sorry, if you're speaking to me, I cannot hear you.
We will respond in the chat. If you're ready to go, I think that's Barry, go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. Anyone that wants to bring forth a nomination is now, or did you say write in the two names for those of us online and email and have that submitted by Monday by 5 p.m.?
Yes, I think your audio is coming a little in and out, but the general question was, when are nominations? So as confirmed in the December meeting, the nomination window was opened in December. That window continues until the end of this agenda item 3. Agenda item 2 will then open up the vote for nominations. So we're just reminding everyone that this is the last opportunity to make nominations. Once the votes begin, the nominations are locked. We currently have 2 names on the ballot that have been nominated and have accepted the nomination. If nominations are made now live, we'll give an opportunity for those who are being nominated to also accept. Once that exception has been occurred or not, we will then move to agenda item 2, which will be including the nomination vote.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I got it that time. And just to make sure, I would like to offer nomination of Lori Walker. And it would be up to Lori if she would like to accept that nomination or not.
Just to make sure we hear you right, I believe Barry Boyd is nominating Lori Walker. Lori Walker is accepting or not? Declining. Lori Walker has declined the nomination.
Thank you, though.
She sends her thanks. Any other nominations? All right, the 2 nominations that have been accepted, Morgan Brown, Roberto Rizzo. These are the 2 names on the ballot currently. Any additional nominations would need to occur ahead of voting. Once voting starts, no new nominations will be accepted. However, voting can occur starting from the action item of today's meeting through February 3rd, that's next Monday, except for those who opt to vote live tonight, in which that vote will be captured and they will no longer be able to make additional votes for obvious reasons. Any other questions related to this agenda item? Seeing none, moving on to agenda item 2, action items 2A, serve timeline presentation. Roberto, I believe we had you on the list to just give some context to the serve timeline as well as the results from the subcommittee meetings related to this item.
I feel like Ben should start it.
My name, at our search subcommittee meeting, we had a presentation on the timeline that Janice and the Air District helped work on for us. It's very, are we gonna present it at all on the screen and everybody else can see it? Yeah. So there's a lot of different milestones we wanna hit within the next 7 months. And so in the next few slides, when they go over them, they'll be able to explain some of the different outreach goals we have, some of the possible projects that we can get started on. And just a reminder for everybody, there are some CERT projects that we can work with Jaime and the CAP funding that we can get started before we present all the our CERT projects to CARB and I think it's in about a year and a half. We're a year and a half away, but it's just something we all worked on. This is the direction we're all going, and I hope we can get a motion passed to accept this timeline today. Now I'll pass it over to Roberto, who is our CERT timeline coordinator.
Thank you, Vince. Good evening, everybody. This is Roberto Rizzo. Yes, shared. We've been working on this timeline since December. So right after the last full committee, Janice, myself, Vince, and a few other members, we've met to talk about what will be the best approach to finish the CERT on time. Right, so we became a CERT about 7 months ago, and now we have about 15 months to get this to the finish line. So the timeline that we put together, it is a bit aggressive in a way, right? So there is a lot that we need to get done in the next couple of months, especially in the next 6 months. So I feel like the most important thing that I'd like to convey is that there's a little bit of a sense of urgency here that all of us need to pitch in and get involved. I understand that a lot of times, we have additional commitments and other work, but ultimately we decided to be part of this committee. And I feel like one of the approaches that Vince and other members of the CERB, we've circulated is, potentially giving action items to each of the committee members. So Janice is gonna go over the timeline right now. We divided it by month, and each month has a specific action item that we need to finish by that month. The month cannot end without us getting that done, so that we can stay on the schedule. So I'm gonna pass it back to Janice, and, we're excited about presenting this to you guys.
Yeah, just want to make a point of order. We do have Serena Rodriguez, who's now present in the meeting. That takes the meeting's quorum number up to 13. That will also change the threshold for the yes votes for the action items. And it's going to be 8, and for motions to be accepted. The last point is that the slides translations are going to be separate from each language in order to make the dense information a little clearer. We will try our best to keep reminding everyone that slide number that Janice is on. And so just understand that each slide will have translated materials. It's just on a different slide.
Great, so just a few, background information on the CERB. A lot of steering committee members have asked, what actually goes into a community emission reduction plan? What is required in the blueprint? And so, what we are tasked to do is to develop an action plan and a program that addresses a lot of the concerns that all of you have shared with us over the past few years. And our next step is really to talk about what the strategies might look like to address the concerns that you all have brought up. And specifically in the plan from the California Air Resources Board blueprint, there are elements that have to go into the plan. And, the first one is, there has to be health-based air quality actions, strategies. We have to document what our activities has been in terms of engaging the community and what the community profile looks like. There are technical information that goes into the plan, such as the emission inventory, which tells us a little bit about the source categories that are most impacting the community. Then there is emission reduction targets, actions, and tracking metrics. So after we look at the strategies, we want to know what air quality goals do we have. And when we come up with the strategies, how are we planning on tracking them? And what does a measure of success mean for the community? The next is a implementation schedule. When we have a list of strategies, we want to list out when the strategies should be implemented and completed. And they have to be achievable within 5 years. And then the last part is an enforcement plan that, talks a little bit about like what enforcement has been in the past, what they are currently, and what the future might look like. Next slide 18. So after February's meeting, there are 7 monthly meetings for us to evaluate and finalize the strategies that we're all going to be talking about. There's about 15 meetings left before the CSC approves the final CERB plan. And this is just a timeline from January all the way through when the CSC approves its final CERB. And there are additional months in April, May, June, that also has to go through various different boards to be approved. So, next slide, please, and slide 19. So there was also questions about what is the steering committee's role in part of part of developing of the plan. And you know, the first one is identify and prioritize the air quality concerns, the community concerns that you have. Prioritize the strategies to address the concerns that we've identified. Then we also, the steering committee is to help us develop our air quality goals and targets that we want to reach, and also assist with community outreach. Next slide, on slide 20. So this is a really broad stroke of the different types of strategies that we could explore. There's rules and regulations, there's things that we could do in permitting, facility-specific risk reduction, there's enforcement, there's land use and transportation, exposure mitigation, incentives, and there's also a bubble that's not in here, which is also outreach and awareness. So next slide, please, on slide 21. So this is a timeline that came before the CERP subcommittee earlier this month. So a lot of you have already seen this table. Some of you have not. I'll still go over them. Basically, how it's structured is, you know, the first quarter of this year, we are focusing on giving the background, the education on the different types of strategies that maybe others have done across the state, others, you know, the different goals that you all might be thinking about, brainstorming what type of strategies might, that you all would be prioritizing. Then the second quarter, is focused on priorities. So once we have a background of like, this is the type of strategies that, you know, we might be interested in, and there could be a list of 100 things. Obviously, there is going to be, we need to think about what the highest priorities are, right? So for the community, because how, you know, there are limited resources, and so we want to make sure that we want to know your priorities. And then after we determine the priorities and learn from the steering committee, we want to, then the district takes that information back and of the strategies, and then we think about what the feasibility of the strategies are. So we'll be coming back to the steering committee, sharing information about, you know, the research that, you know, we thought about. We have a conversation about that. And then we also talk about implementation timeline and the metrics of which we're going to measure the success. At the end of that, we're going to be, you know, confirming the targets, the goals, the metrics in that quarter 3. And quarter 4 is focused on finalizing everything that we talked about in the previous months. And so, you know, we finalize what the priorities are for the strategies and metrics, we finalize the timelines, and eventually in December, the CSC approves a draft of the SERP strategies for public comment. So next slide. So this is slide 22. The first quarter of 2026 will be about, so the steering committee has all, you know, discussed the strategies, discussed the timelines, prioritize them. We'll put them into a document. And then that document will then go out to public comment, so that the public at large, the community, can also provide its input. Once we receive the public comments, the CSC and the district will discuss the comments that we receive, what may be some of the solutions that the resolutions to the comments that we have received, and then the district will revise, district and the community will revise the plan based on the feedback that we get. So currently, the timeline for the SERP, the final SERP for the CSC approval, is scheduled to be in March. And then in quarter 2, April, May, and June, you can see that, you know, the district would take the plan to our air quality districts board for approval, then the district will be submitting it to CARB by the end of June to meet our legislative deadline, of 2 years. And then I just want to go back one slide. And one thing that I didn't touch on yet, which is slide 21, but back on 21, there's a column in there about outreach strategy. So there is a recognition that, there needs to be, still more outreach done in these other areas in the community that we've expanded the boundaries to. And so the SERP subcommittee had intentionally put in that column to recognize that. And then I think I'm gonna pass it over to Vincent and Tito to talk about the outreach strategy in the next quarter to understand the community's concerns so that they could be used as part of this development process. Next slide, please. One more slide. Yeah, so with that, I'm going to pass it to Vincent here, and then maybe you can tag team with Tito.
Tito there. Good Tito.
Tito, do you want to go? Oh, and folks, this is slide 23 now. Tito, are you
Yeah, go ahead, guys. Sorry. Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Hey, Tito, we can hear you great, but now Janice's voice dropped out.
We can hear you great, Tito, if you can hear us. Can you guys still hear us?
Yeah, no, it's been in and out for me all day. I'm sorry. I don't think it's my phone or my computer.
No worries. We've been having some technical difficulties and thank you for bearing with us. I believe that we're just passing you to discuss the outreach timeline. Can you hear us?
Okay, hey Tito, I'll take it. Okay, so me and Tito were exchanging text messages, talking about the different outreach goals and things we were working on, but it's gonna be kind of a collaboration of ideas from everybody on how we can do outreach in the community with our new information, with the emissions inventory, with the monitoring we have. And I'm hoping, we've been talking with the air district about having a large event where we can go out into the community, invite them to what we're doing and show what we're doing as far as in the SERP. And so there was a few different ideas. Tabling is obviously the easiest one to do, go to these events where people are at. And we had a successful tabling event just down the street on Franklin and Fruit Ridge here just at the beginning of the month. And so there's examples of what we can do, but having a large event where we can get the community, get the information of what we're doing to the community and let them see and understand and have that public comment possibility for them is what are one of our biggest goals with these the SERP strategies and timelines. So I think that covers most of the outreach. Janet?
You want to cover the map?
Oh, yeah, and that map right there is where all of our committee members live? Is that what it is? Yeah.
Let me go ahead and take over. So this is a map that was requested by a steering committee member, and it shows the representation of the members within the boundaries. And during the outreach subcommittee meeting, there was a discussion on trying to find representation or at least information about air quality concerns in very specific areas that you see on the red circles. So you can see, down by, I think, the circles on the map. I'm not gonna try to read it from this PowerPoint.
You guys want me to chime in?
Yes, go ahead, if you can hear you now, Tito.
Go for it, Tito.
We can hear you, Tito, go
Okay.
for it.
Thanks, guys. As you guys know, our dear friend Rhonda's at the left, and there's a little bit of administrative and logistic stuff that we have to do with Mac Road partnerships. So we're working on that lately. We had a pretty spirited discussion in the last outreach meeting. A lot of us felt that there's still some opportunities for us to reach out to our community members, not the least of which is for me, the AAPI communities. Right away, I reach out to Reggie and the Asian Resource Inc., ICC, Janice and Vincent on that. A lot of us also felt that we have enough in our team. We've done as much as we can with outreach. And as much as we outreach, I really felt like the important thing is working with the team members that we have here. Because I think that we really felt like we have a good pulse, a good sense of what the community needs out there. It's just a matter of putting it in action. But that's still being discussed. And the last discussion we had was funding for some of our projects. We need tabling, we need marketing items, we need tables and chairs. That still hasn't been resolved. Myself, Janice, and Vince are going to be working on that. We have a big event coming up with Lunar New Year Festival. I am working on that right now. It's looking like it's going to be raining this weekend, so we're all stressing out. But yeah, definitely more engagement. But I believe, I really feel like we have a good team and we just got to get it going. I'm just one of those guys who feel a little bit frustrated that we've done enough talking. Let's just get it going. All right, thanks.
Right, we will now allow Vincent to open the motion for this action item. Just to remind everyone, the order of operation will have the motion. If the motion carries, there will then be a period for public comment and steering committee conversation on the motion. There will then be the vote cast. If the vote receives 8 or more member votes in today's meeting, it carries. Go ahead, Vincent.
Yes, I'd like to make the motion that we accept the SERP timeline created in the SERP subcommittee.
We have the first motion. Do we have a second?
Stephanie Williams, I second the motion to accept the CERT timeline created in the CERT subcommittee.
All right, the motion has been approved. Do we have any public comment on this item? Oh, sorry, yeah, go ahead. Do we have any in-person public comment? Not seeing any. We do have one online and Britta will read it.
Okay, so this comment was from Herman. And he said, because civil rights investigations have been shut down by the federal government, the community will need to hear from the state and local leaders on how our civil rights will have protections in our marginalized communities. Someone seconded this comment, and then he also commented that DEI has been rolled back as well.
Thank you for the comment, Armand. Any other online public comments? Again, remember to raise your hand or press *9 to raise your hand if you're on the phone. We do not have additional public comments. Would you guys like to, steering committee, would you like to close the public comment section? Stephanie or Vince?
All right, yep, Stephanie Williams, and I will now close public comment for this action item.
All right, Stephanie Williams has closed the public comment for this action item. Are there any steering committee comments or further discussion necessary on action item 2A CERP timeline CERP timeline, sorry. Action item 2B CERP timeline vote? In person, and if any online, please raise your hand.
Hi, Richard Falcone here. In regard to steering committee further discussion, I want to see if I understand specifically what Herman Barahona was referring to in the comment. I'm still a little unclear as to what the comment does in relation to what we're trying to do here with the timeline vote or the timeline. So is there any way we can get more clarity from Mr. Barahona?
If he would like to, he may just want to also remind everyone that public comment doesn't necessarily require interaction, but if they would like to, they can, and it does seem like their hands up, so go ahead. You can unmute yourself if you'd like, or put your comment in the chat.
Yes, thank you. So, I mean, if you watch the news right now, the Department of Justice has closed down civil rights investigations. DEI has been rolled back. Those are severe implications on environmental justice. The US EPA is about to get hammered, and it is getting hammered as we speak. So that means that it leaves the powers of the state and the counties and the city to relieve some of the anxieties that we're having out here on the ground about, well, what happens with our immigrants communities that are very afraid to participate right now? What happens with our, non-English speaking communities that are now have unfortunately been intimidated into being quiet because of the horrendous things that are happening at the federal level. These will have implications in our outreach efforts. That's what I was trying to say.
Thank you for the clarity. Any additional comment or discussion from now? Okay, and I saw that you have yours. I think we have to. Is the public comment was closed? Would you like to reopen it? Sure. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm not following the rules. What Herman brought up reminded me of something that just recently happened within my workplace and speaks exactly to what he's talking about. And I think it's important that you guys think about this in the broader picture. Because the county had an income pilot program and it targeted specific communities, more specifically African-American Black communities. And they were threatened with a lawsuit because of that. This was very recent. And so with these things happening, since the work that we're actually doing is being intentional and targeting specific demographics and races, one, we have to talk about that, and also to not be afraid, not to let what's happening put us in fear mode, to not continue the work that we're doing. Because that was a really big reminder for me that my coworker, who's also Black, really reminded all of us at work about that, we can't pretend and hide what we're actually doing under another name, so that it doesn't catch a lawsuit. We need to call these things out and continue to do the work that we're doing. Oh, my name's Eric Hadamian.
Any other public comment? Would you like to close them? Okay,
Yes,
we'll
Stephanie
close
Williams, close public, and I will close public comment. Thank you.
Perfect. Any other steering committee member discussion items on action item 2B in person? Seeing none, do we have any online? Seeing none, we can now move to the vote.
All right. All right, we're gonna go ahead for action item 1, our serve timeline vote. Will now begin. Please, when you hear your name, please confirm or cast your vote, starting with Barry Boyd,
Aye.
thank you. Bishop Chris Baker,
Yes.
Jamala Green,
Yes.
James Allison,
Yes.
Lori Walker, Morgan Brown,
Yes.
Raina Moreno, Richard Lincoln,
Yes.
Ward Winchell is alternate, Roberto Rizzo,
Yes.
Serena Rodriguez,
Yes.
Stephen Street, Tito Hong,
Yes.
Vincent Valdez,
Yes.
and Stephanie Williams, and that is a yes for me. All right.
Have 12 yeses, the Virginia Action Area for the new CERT timeline.
All right. Motion carries.
With that, we are now able to move on to our next agenda item 3A, community emissions inventory. We'll be going back to Jen.
All right, thank you. As you guys saw in the previous presentation, what's required to be put into the plan, part of that information is what the community emission inventory looks like. And we have the California Air Resources Board, who has developed a community-specific emission inventory for our community, so that we can understand what are the sources that are, most impactful in our community. And so we have Abhishek here from CARB to give the presentation. And we'll be using this information to help with the second activity too, where we are going to be revisiting some of the community concerns that all of you have shared with us. So keep that in mind.
Thank you, Jenny. We are at slide number 27. So let's get started. I'm Abhishek Theeman, and I work at the California Air Resources Board in the community inventory, community emission inventory group. Tonight I'll walk you through an overview of community emission inventory for the South Sacramento Florida community. And so as we go along, feel free to ask questions. Okay, so as we go along the presentation, feel free to ask questions. Either put it in the chat or like raise your hand or raise your hand. And then me and my colleagues are there online to help you with your questions. Next slide, please. So we are on slide 28. So emission inventories. Speak a little louder. Emission inventories are a foundation or are the basic foundation of our air quality programs. So in our the CARB's Community Air Protection Blueprint calls for the use of emission inventories in community emission reduction programs or SERPs to identify emission sources, where it is coming from, where the pollution is happening. Is it cars? Is it industry? Is it dust? What are the sources? Then it also helps establish a baseline of emissions. Then it also helps set emission targets and reduction measures. And then finally, it helps with tracking the emission reductions, which will happen because of the implementation of community emission reduction plans. Next slide. We are at slide 29. So right now we are looking at the South Sacramento Florida community. The emission inventory for this community accounts for emissions within the 1 kilometer grid community boundary, as shown in black in the map in front of you. And as you can also see on the map, the 1 kilometer grid boundary reflects the full grid that expands the community boundary, which is shown in the pink shaded area. So we have made the emission inventory for an area which is a little bit larger than the community to cover all our bases. Next slide, please. So in this slide, we're going to talk what exactly is an emissions inventory and why do we need it. So think of emissions inventory as a simple list or accounting of all the sources of air pollution in your community. An emission inventory estimates the amount of air pollutions, amount of air pollutants discharged into the atmosphere by emission sources in a region and within a certain time period, like a calendar year. For South Sacramento, Florida, we looked at the year 2023. First, we figure out where the pollution is coming from. So we sort of divide like all the source into 4 categories. The first one is stationary, then area-wide, on-road, and off-road. I'll explain it in the slides later. So I also want to kind of give an disclaimer about emission inventories. So emission inventories are developed with the best data available and are updated over time to reflect sound science and robust new data. It's important to understand that emission inventories are developed with the best available data, and as we have new data, latest science available, the emission inventory changes. So emission inventories are dynamic in nature, and if there is data available in a year or two, so we can go ahead and update the emission inventory and then look at all the sources which are happening within the community. So due to that, there is an inherent uncertainty and limitation in emission inventories, whether they are based on self-reported emissions from the facilities or from estimates calculated using methodologies and models. Next slide, please. We are at slide number 31. District and CARB staff have been working together to develop an emission inventory for the community to help understand existing sources of air pollution and where these occur within the community. Emission sources are divided into 4 major categories. First, there are stationary sources. Stationary sources are of 2 types, stationary point and stationary aggregate. Stationary point are fixed point sources of air pollution. For example, your power plants, manufacturing facilities, or your cogeneration facilities, which are there within the community. And the stationary aggregate are fixed distributed aggregated sources, which are distributed across your community. So examples would be gas stations and auto body shops. Next are area-wide sources. These are sources which are spread over a wide geographical area. For example, consumer products like household cleaning products and hairsprays, which we use every day, paint, cleanup, and thinning solvents, coatings applied to building structures or houses, smoke from fireplaces, dust from farms are some examples of area-wide sources. Both the district and CARB work together to calculate emissions for these categories. Then we have on-road mobile sources. These are basically anything that drives on the roads, like cars, trucks, and buses. And finally, off-road mobile sources. These include things like small off-road engines and equipment, construction equipment, your lawnmowers, aeroplanes, and trains. So CARBs work on inventories for both on-road mobile and off-road mobile sources. Next slide, please. So we are at slide 32. So how do we actually estimate emissions? So for stationary sources, which are big factories and industrial sites, they actually report their pollution levels to the district, to the air district, and that information gets shared with us or CARB. Emissions from the stationary aggregate area-wide off-road mobile sources are estimated using emission estimation methodologies, which use best available activity data, emission factors, and other geospatial data. One of the examples would be residential wood combustion, which is a huge burden for PM2.5 and NOx emissions in the community. And when it comes to cars and trucks on the roads, we work with the regional planning groups to get data on how much are people driving on the roads. We combine that data with vehicle fleet mix, and other geospatial data, to estimate, how much of, pollution is happening from those vehicles. It's a pretty involved process, but we use the best tools and information available to get the most accurate picture of our air quality. Next slide, please. So we are at slide 33. So with an emission inventory, we get a good idea of what's polluting our air. But then the question comes, what do we do with that information? That is where your guys' input, your guys' input is so important, like district's input, the community members' input. So we really value that. So you can use, you can look at the emission inventory along with what you already know from your lived experiences within the community to validate concerns and identify gaps about the air pollution within the community, and then use this to work together to develop a list of priorities and actions. For example, shown here are some of the top emission sources that are classified based on inventory data. So you can see from stationary sources, you can see fuel combustion, mineral processes, commercial cooking. So that is the stationary portion, which includes stationary point as well as stationary aggregate. From area-wide residential fuel combustion is a big concern, which is like burning wood in fireplaces and wood stoves. And then dust is a big PM and PM10 contributor, as well as paved road dust, and consumer products is the major contributor for ROG. Then there are car and trucks and other off-road equipment. Next slide, please. So we are at slide 34. So these pie charts show the breakdown of different types of air pollution in the South Sacramento, Florida area. Each chart represents different pollutants, such as NOx, PM10, PM2.5, ROG, and DPM. And the slices show where the pollution is coming from. For example, the NOx chart here shows that more than half of the pollution is coming from on-road mobile and off-road mobile sources. So mobile sources are the major source of air pollution in the community. Similarly, if we look at the PM2.5 chart, we see that most of the tiny particles called PM2.5 come from things like smoke, dust, and fumes, while factories and other stationary sources also played some role. In the next few slides, we'll take a closer look at each of these pollution sources and talk about what we can do to reduce them. Next slide, please. We are at slide number 35. Here is a closer look at two pollutants, NOx and ROG. So these pollutants contribute to smog and other air quality problems. On the left, we see that the big chunk of NOx comes from heavy-duty trucks. Cars and other smaller vehicles also contribute, along with off-road equipment. Residential wood burning, which is burning of wood in fireplaces and wood stove, also contributes a lot. On the right, you will notice that a lot of ROG come from consumer products, things like
ROG and VOC.
Okay. So ROG would be your reactive organic gases. So for example, like if you're using, at the gas station, if you're refueling your car, there will be vapors coming out of the gasoline, which will be considered your reactive organic gases. So those are evaporative emissions that happens from all the gas stations and all the cars. So those are ROGs, and those are also called volatile organic compounds, like it has another name. So, in short, those are called for VOCs. So I'll start with the rock again. You will notice that a lot of rock comes from consumer products, things like paints and solvents. Cars and off-road equipment also play a role, as does the residential fuel combustion, which includes things like fireplaces and wood stoves. This detailed breakdown helps us pinpoint the specific sources of these pollutants, so we can develop targeted strategies to reduce them. Next slide, please. So we are at slide 36, and right now we will look at similar charts for the pollutants PM 2.5 and PM 10. So the half of PM 2.5 in our air comes from burning fuels at home, like wood in fireplaces or gas stoves. Things like dust from roads and construction also contribute to the PM 2.5 emissions. For on the right, for PM 10, we see a similar pattern. But construction and demolition activities are even bigger contributors of PM 10, because dust particles tend to be bigger than PM 2.5, which are finer. So construction and demolition really emit a lot of PM 10, and that is why it makes a big chunk of PM 10 emissions. Also, residential fuel burning contributes heavily. So understanding what these particles, where these particles come from, helps us find ways to reduce them and also protect our health and people in the community. Next slide, please. So now we'll talk about DPM, which is also called diesel particulate matter. So imagine it to be the sooty stuff that comes out of the diesel engines, and it is really harmful to our health, as it is a major contributor of causing cancer. So it has a high cancer burden, diesel PM. So as you can see, off-road equipment like construction vehicles make up the largest sources of DPM. Heavy duty trucks and also contribute a significant amount, and things like trains and other types of vehicles add to the problem as well. Knowing this helps us prioritize strategies to reduce DPM, such as using cleaner fuels and newer engines, using diesel particulate filters help, and promoting alternatives to diesel powered equipment. Next slide, please. So we are at slide 38. So slide 38, 39, 40. The maps here, maps in these slides show the added to 2023 total emissions for all categories, stationary, area-wide, on-road and off-road, for each 1K grid in the community. From these maps, we can get a sense of how NOx, ROG, PM10, PM 2.5, and DPM total emissions are distributed throughout the community. The darker colored grids with higher emissions are often concentrated in locations on or near major roadways, which are US 50 and US 99, and also I-5. And also the darker grids are also closer to the industrial sites within the community. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So we are at slide 41. This graph shows how much diesel pollution from vehicle has decreased in Sacramento County over the years. See how the lines are all going down? That's because of cleaner engines and rules and regulations about vehicle emissions. The biggest drops are from those big trucks, like the ones we see on the freeways. But even smaller vehicles are getting more cleaner, and that's why we are seeing a huge decrease in the emissions. Next slide, please. so we are at slide 42. And as I close, I want to bring this slide back again, because this is what we want to do going forward. Using inventory and other information that is available to help build out priorities and actions for yourself. And we are here to help you along the way. Please let us know if you have questions, if you want us to walk you through any of the slides, or if you missed anything. Feel free to ask. Feel free to let us know, because we are here to help. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now open up discussion for the agenda item 4A. Sorry, discussion item 3A for the steering committee members, followed by an opportunity for public comment. And then we'll go back to an opportunity for the steering committee to address or discuss any of the public comment items. So for discussion item 3A, do we have any steering committee discussions or questions related to this item in person? If you're a steering committee online, please raise your hand and we'll get you in the queue. Go ahead, Stephanie.
Okay, this is just a question for Abhishek. Can you just talk a little bit about how, how the temperature, whether it's an extremely hot day or cold day or wind, how that impacts emissions?
Can you repeat that again, please?
I was asking if you can speak to how temperature may impact emissions from the different areas, whether it's high temperature days, heated days, if it's a windy day, does that have any impact on the emissions?
As far as my knowledge goes, like if the temperatures are high, I think you are going to see more emissions, especially for the engines, for like whatever for car trucks. Not only in terms of exhaust, but also in terms of what evaporative emissions are coming out of them, which means like if you are using a diesel truck, then more fumes will come out of the diesel tanker. So that will increase your ROC emissions. But like then in terms of exhaust, there will be more, like because the engine will run at a heavier rate. I believe that you will get more PM 2.5 emissions and NOx emissions as well from like on hot temperature days. As far as emissions are concerned, I believe that like wind doesn't play any role in how much emissions are emitted because it's a source, right? So I think like that it remains constant there, but then like that wind can carry your emissions somewhere else, and then like it can also make like those emissions can also impact some other population. So that's what we suggest, that like we should also do a dispersion modeling sort of thing, analysis on top of the emission analysis, where the wind carries away like these emissions. Like let's say like if something big factory is polluting north of the community, and then like a wind blows which is south, so like all the emissions will come down to the community, and that will increase the emissions within that area, and also the concentrations of the emissions in the community. So I think so that happens. But as far as emissions are concerned, I don't think like it makes a big difference in how much emissions are emitted due to the wind.
Right.
And also like my team is here, my manager Sharanya and Adrian, who works on road, they are also there. They can also, if they have something to add, they can also chime in.
Thank you, Abhishek. I think you covered it. So pretty much it depends, right? Like as Abhishek was saying, emissions can be higher on hot days as well as cold days from certain types of sources. So it definitely, it's dependent on the source type and the type of conditions in which those are operating. And as far as wind is concerned, as well as the other, like the temperature and relative humidity and everything, all those things impact the concentration of pollutions in a particular area. So it's not directly related to the emissions that are emitted, but definitely it helps in dispersing the emissions or holding it if there's like a lower boundary layer that can trap everything and keep it in a particular place. But also, I think when it comes to residential wood combustion, maybe the district team can help answer that on really cold days when, you know, these wood is being burned in fireplaces. I think that also has some kind of effect on how those emissions are coming out of the chimneys and things like that. So I don't know if the district wants to add to it, but more or less the general answer is it depends on the source type and where it is located.
Thank you.
Vincent, I see you next.
Yes, thank you for the report. I have several, well, I have a few questions. But the first one is, this is says 2023 emissions inventory for South Sacramento. So what monitoring projects were used to come up with this emissions inventory?
So we do not use monitoring data for making the emission inventories. So for stationary sources, the stationary facilities report data to the district, and that data is then QAQC'd by the district and then submitted to CAB. So that is one portion of it. And then there are stationary aggregate, area-wide and off-road mobile sources. So those are calculated using models and and the latest activity data. And then we kind of like put it into 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer grids using spatial data. And then the on-road, so I think there is a slide, like we can go back to the slide. And for on-road, for the cars, and so we get the activity data from metropolitan organizations, which for Sacramento is Sacramento Association for Sacramento Council of Governments, TACOG. So they give us PMT vehicle mileage travels on each roadway within the community. We then apply our latest CAB on-road model, like emission factors from there on that activity data, and we are able to calculate emissions on each and every roadway. But because we are showing these emissions on grid, so so we kind of take those roads and grid all the emission information for our on-road mobile sources for the community. So that's how all the sources. So we do not really use any monitoring data to estimate these emissions. So essentially we use reported data and models, use activity data and emission factor data from different sources.
Thank you. And then, so my other second question was, slide 34, slide 35 have diesel particulate matter pie charts, and also the sources of emissions. And so some of the so particularly on slide 34, the diesel particulate matter, it's a huge amount of off-road mobile sources, on-road and then stationary. And then when you go down to 35, you look at the NOx. I don't know, it's just oh no, I'm sorry. 37 is the other diesel particulate matter pie chart. And so I was trying to compare those, and so just kind of equaling out the pies, and so maybe it could be a later discussion, but I was just looking at the different pie charts and how the different slices come out of them, and so.
Okay. So that
34 and 37, I guess, are the two.
So can we go back to the earlier, like 35th? 34th, I guess. So this slide, so we are dividing all the sources in four categories, which is stationary, on-road, off-road, and area-wide. In the other one, it goes one step further. Within off-road, it's also like it's cutting down the pie charts there also. So let's say like for DPM, there is a lot of off-road mobile there, right? But like that, the pie charts which are shown on the next slides, like it goes into detail of even what is within, like what sources are there within the off-road mobile. So let's say off-road equipment, trains, like, yeah, so that's,
Yes,
so it goes, so the bigger pie chart is cut into like smaller pie charts, but like if you add those up, like if it was off-road, it will come out to be like 61%. So it's like giving you more detail to make better decisions.
thank you. And I think that's the same question I had for residential fuel combustion as well. So but I think you just explained that same
Yeah.
one with the different pie charts. Thank you.
Did you have a comment, Attorney?
Thank you. This is Roberto Rizzo. A question I would have is, so you mentioned that you calculate these using models. How accurate are you? Like when you're thinking about the models, because we're not using any actual monitoring for it. You're using data that you have available with it to model. Kind of like, it's a prediction in a way.
Yeah.
So what's the level of accuracy for it? The model errors.
It is as good as the data we get. So I'll give you an example. So for construction and demolition, so let's say because like the dust is really high, like the PM 2.5 from the dust is really high. So there is a methodology called construction and demolition dust. And the methodology is the methodology which we have been using is as old as 20 years. But now like our group also is in the process of updating that category. So we are getting new data, new available data to update that category. And right now we cannot say like if it is going up or down. My personal feeling is that like it should go down a little bit because because the activity data which we used like 20 years ago, there was a lot of construction happening at the time, right? So that was representative of those times. But if you say that like that data is also like valid right now, that is not the case. So I would say that like your data is as good as no, the model is as good as the data you give it.
Right.
So we are in the process of updating these area source and area source methodologies. So this is sort of the initial emission inventory. And we are updating a couple of major categories by end of May for the safe development process. So, but that will happen is like as more meetings happen, we'll update this inventory with the new data which we have by May, and then like we'll also present it to you and we'll see like how much difference it made. Like, updating the new data.
And the reason I ask is because. Oh, yeah, my original question was, how accurate are the models that we're using? And the response was, this is as good as it gets, is using the data that's available. Right, and my follow-up question would be, so there is 5 different particles or I don't emissions that we're tracking here. So which of the 5 would you say, or could you like organize them from most accurate to least accurate in your experience, right? So the reason I ask is because we need to prioritize projects for the community and for the committee. So it would be very beneficial for us to understand which of these are more accurate so that we could prioritize, potentially those models.
I'm not sure. I think I'll go back and I'll provide you an answer. Like I'll email it to the group probably. I'll email it to the district and then. But if my manager Sharanya wants to chime in on this, that would be great.
Yeah, I don't think it's a matter of which pollutant has more accuracy, right? It's a matter of, as Abhishek was trying to explain, it's about the data and the method that we use and what data has been collected, what studies have been done to look at what emission factors are available to estimate these emissions. So instead of looking at, which pollutants of this list is more accurate, I think maybe as you guys think about it, we'll do priorities. Maybe you want to work with the district to see what are the priorities that you want to focus on, whether if it is health related, right? I think all of these pollutants have a health impact, but PM 2.5 especially is a major pollutant. A lot of communities, the AB 617 communities across the state, when they develop their CERT, try to focus on PM 2.5. because it's more of a local pollutant than a regional pollutant like NOx and ROC that can contribute to ozone. So I think, if you thought along those lines, maybe that might be a better way to kind of think about how to come up with what your particular focus is going to be. And then kind of look at what the actions and the strategies and the things that you can do to help build yourself. But I don't know if anybody here from OCAP is here. Chandan or Adriana, if you guys know of some specific example from other parts of the state where they've kind of looked at pollutants that in a way to kind of stratify them to help with this process, maybe you can chime in.
Yeah, sure. And hi, guys. Folks, this is Chandan, I'm a manager here in OCAB. Yeah, I mean, as Abhishek mentioned, like in the early part of the presentation, I mean, it's really like a mix of like multiple factors. I mean, it's going to be like emissions inventory, like air quality monitoring that the community has done, your lived experiences and all. So it's a summation of all that. And as like, Herman pointed out, like, the focus is really on like, reducing like the cumulative emissions burden. So I don't think it's like so much more about the the accuracy, because again, like we're trying to like generate like representative data that can help you get started, but at the end of the day, like whatever pollutant you choose, whatever issues or concerns you choose to address, it's really about like coming up with like some kind of like a prioritization exercise, like which one of them would you like to tackle first, and that answer may not just hinge on like which is the most.
Thank you. I think we have a follow-up question.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, and I think a priority for us here, the committee, especially coming from the experts, should be to speak in lay terms so that we understand exactly what's happening, because none of us are experts on what's going on. So, simple responses would be very beneficial. Thank you. And thank you for the, letting us know that 2.5 is usually that was tracked the most and that we have the most data for. So maybe we can look at, 2.5 emissions as the one that we could purchase for the committee.
So one thing I want to add is, so let's say NOx and so what does it do? Like the pollution does, the NOx and ROC, like they increase the ozone and sort of like, so that's what they do. So the PM 2.5 is most important because like it's very fine particle, goes into your lungs and also causes all sorts of problems like cardiovascular problems. Yeah, it gets absorbed into your like bloodstream deep. So it really, and then DPM are even finer particles, which are associated with cancer risk. And the cancer risk per gram is fairly high than all of the, it is really, not really high, but like fairly high. So I think you can prioritize it on probably like if it is health, then PM 2.5 and DPM. If it is local air quality and ozone formation, then it should be NOx and ROC. Thank you. Yeah.
Did that answer your question?
That's correct.
Okay.
All right, sounds like I have a question. Next would be Richard.
Thank you for the information, Richard Falcone here. I'm curious, and again, trying to understand, because I know you described reported data, models, etc. And this is all information that's been provided to the California Air Resources Board specifically. Am I right about that?
Yes, like for the stationary point sources would be your cogeneration plants, like electric utilities and power plants and emissions from that. So because district issues them permits, so they're bound to submit that data to the district. And once the data comes to the district, they QAQC it, make sense out of the data. Sometimes it's only activity data. So like district really works to convert it into emissions data.
Sure, and I definitely can understand. You did say that it is quality control checked.
Yeah.
From the reporting sources for the stationary, but for these other as well that are not stationary, I'm just wondering, with this collection of data, this inventory, is any of the information from Shasta or Sonoma? What's the technology group that did the mobile monitoring?
No.
Sonoma. Is any of this data from Sonoma been included in any of this emissions inventory?
No.
No,
Okay.
I don't think so.
Do we know when we will see?
So, yeah, let me share information.
There's no follow-up, but yeah.
Also, while we switch over and finish this question, just a point of order that we are getting to a little close to time. We might recommend that this gets moved to the subcommittee for further discussion. Go ahead. Sorry.
Because there's.
No, we'll allow for some time, unless this, committee members are wanting to extend the time, we would want to honor the original time, so that would be our first priority. Fortunately, yeah, go ahead, Janice.
So emission inventory do not mix air monitoring data in it. So it's like we take the information that we get from like stationary sources. We do some we use the best information in terms of how to calculate certain of these categories. But there's no way to take the monitoring data to reconcile. There is no way to directly reconcile the emission inventory because they're two different sets and types of information.
Sure, I can see that. For purposes of CERP though, are we only allowed to make our selections for projects based on this emissions inventory?
So this is a set of tools that you can use to help make your decisions. It's also going to be your own lived experiences and what you've experienced in the community. And we've also shared some information on air monitoring, and we will continue to do that.
Okay.
So it's, you know, it's not in a nice neat bow, I know. But there are different tools for you guys to use to consider informing your decisions.
One final, on these emissions diagrams on slide 38 and 39, the tables that are designated with the color codes in there. Is there a way to also add in here on these colors and the particular percentages, which ones are above, at, or below standards?
So the average, the values which you're talking about, which are like national standards, those are for the concentration values, and these are emission values. So you have to like put these emission values through a photochemical model to get two concentrations. So like it won't be an apples to apple comparison to like, so we cannot really set a threshold. Yeah, but I also want my manager
Yes.
to chime in, like if
Yeah.
he wants.
She chimed in via the chat, so I'll read that out loud. So, she chatted that emissions inventory is emissions. So what type of pollutant and how much that pollutant is emitted from a source versus air pollutant concentrations are measured by monitoring. So if you think about it, they're kind of two separate buckets, is how I'm interpreting that.
I'm gonna make one last comment. Thank you for the information, but this is so doggone confusing. All I know is I have community members who are suffering from asthma, suffering from cardiovascular, suffering from all of these illnesses that we're looking to see if it's attributed to any of the things that are going on. This information is so confusing. To be able to know that I am responding to my community that is suffering, I need to understand this. So I'm gonna put that out there for the committee to think about as we get into CERT. Thank you.
Rita? Would you send that over to email?
Yes, the request is that can we send the comment, the explanation, over email so that they understand?
And this is intended to be an introduction, right? And so, CARB has offered to, host a additional meeting, or come to the CERP subcommittee meeting to, continue to answer questions and, you know, make this more, clear, I would say, and how this could inform your decision making. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. For the sake of time, we will have to move on. But next up will be public comment on this discussion item, both in person and online. Is there any comments or discussions on this particular item? We do see some online. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Hello. So I had questions about getting to look at the map before we went further into the conversation. So one, I'd like to go back and take a look at all of the maps of where the different types of pollutants are found. And maybe that'll help clarify what's going on with our communities if we slow down and we look at our maps a little bit more. And maybe we can discuss what's going on in these maps, because this section got blown over really fast. And to me, this is the meat and the bones. This is the real stuff. What exactly is where, and what infrastructure is in those places that might be contributing? So I'm Mangan Park. That means that I am basically in the far left-hand corner. We have an airport. We have a freeway. We kind of have two freeways, honestly. And we're really close to a third freeway. And we've got the Campbell Soup, not too far away also. So, and you know, everything that's going on along Franklin Boulevard and the industrial areas of 47th. And so looking at this, yeah, we've got the NOx emissions. We've got the ROG emissions happening. The PM 2.5 ain't that sweet. And I've got some concerns about that as well. And then the PM 10, this is where it kind of, the patterns start to alter on us just a little bit and get a lot, it's not as well clustered. We've got a lot more spread going on here. So these are those larger particles that tend to be construction debris, dust, those sorts of things, not quite such, you know, mechanical or petroleum based of any kind. And so that kind of shifts around a little bit more and winds up more in the south, but actually the south has been having some problems also. Can we go back and look at the other slide on the NOx? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so right there along the freeway, we've got a lot of problems in the southeast with NOx, somewhat on ROG, but not really on PM 2.5, but definitely on PM 10s.
But sorry, that's time for the comment. Thank you for the comment, Armand.
Is that all the map?
That's all the time, sorry. Limited time for public comment. Go ahead, Armand.
How much time do we have for public comment?
We're allowing a minute for public comment. I allowed for a little bit more there.
Okay.
But,
Okay, so I commend the California Air Resources Board for offering this tool. I don't find it confusing at all. In fact, I've been sharing a lot of these with our partners. We represent all the major institutions of faith in the South Sacramento AB 617 area. We've been having this conversation about adding more tools to our analysis, and this is an amazing document. We'd love to explore some other options. We know that there's some literacy concerns, but that's what we're here for. We want to make sure that we interpret and translate these documents so everybody understands what it does. But I think it's a great way to look at the concentrations, cumulative impacts. And of course, it actually kind of matches all of the stuff we've been seeing with US EPA data, the National Institutes of Health, and the CalEnviroscreen. They have all pretty much helped us out understand why our people continue to get sick. So there's definitely no confusion on my part. And again, because the federal government is falling apart right now with our civil rights concerns, I'm looking to the state to protect our California constitutional rights.
thank you, Armand. Any other public comments online? Yes, for those who are in the steering committee, there is a section to have a further discussion after the public comment. Seeing no more public comments online, we can now move back to steering committee discussions on the public comments.
Hey, Mike, actually, there's two of us. Well, I know it's public comment, but I was, as about Richard and, Roberto had just commented, I would like to comment, but I do believe Serena's hand may have been up before mine.
Yes, so sorry, just for the clarity, we opened up for discussion, for the steering committee, we'll now move to the public discussion, portion. Once the public discussion portion is over, we bounce back to the steering committee to continue the discussion. So first, public comment, we did have some public comments in the chat. So, Britta, do you want to read this?
Yeah, so Herman, these are a little bit further back, so thank you everyone for your patience and me getting to read these. Herman said that, remember that AB 617 legislation is to focus on cumulative pollution, not single source. As he noted, he said that this is a great tool and the data matches their concerns. He also recommended that we compare this inventory and US EPA and CalEnviro data. That would be very important. And then our CARB folks added in the chat, Chariana added that I want to add to what Janice said. Emissions inventory is one tool you can use to prioritize what sources you want to prioritize. However, it cannot tell you which particular source is causing high exposure for any particular pollutant. That's where you have to look at sources, monitoring, modeling, other tools to complement emissions data to see what can be done. And the district may have monitoring data that might be able to help. And then Jennifer commented, sorry to Richard, she did my best to help you and the board understand this data better tonight. I've been muted, so this is the best I can do for us. I just want to note, Jennifer, that was due to the amount of time for public comment, noting we're at 7:54.
Perfect. With that, I see no other public comments, so we'll now move back to steering committee discussion. Are there any steering committee discussion items in person? Stephanie?
Just wanted to say again that when we initially talked about having this presentation, and Janice did speak to this, but I wanted to again repeat this, that this is intended to be an overview, and we did talk about having opportunities to go deeper into this, to be able to answer more questions, not only for the steering committee, but also for members of the public. And so that's something that will be, I know that we'll be having an opportunity to do in our subcommittee meetings moving forward.
Any further discussions with steering committee members in person? Seeing none, we'll now go to online. I believe, Serena, you were first. You might be frozen. Your pic video seems to be frozen. If you can hear us, you can unmute. Can you message her in the chat? Serena seems to be frozen. We'll move to Barry Boyd. Go ahead, Barry.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you for your statement, because you took some of the crux of what I was just about to comment, in that the inventory is a tool. It is not the tool. My opinion, the disappointing part of it is a methodology and or information from 20 years ago. But as was stated, the soon to come current information, or more current information, will be abreast. But to that, as Herman had pointed out, the color coding simplifies the understanding of what we're looking at. And it's just understanding, putting the darker boxes to the printed information. It's just slowly walking it out. No offense to our presenter. Maybe some of it is his heavy accent for the understanding of what was being presented. Again, no slam on the accent, but the reality is. But in conclusion, we do thank CARB that may come forward in our subcommittee meeting and represent. And so those who do have more questions can go ahead and ask those questions at that time.
Just want to make a note for our charter agreement to be respectful in our comments and to make sure we have respect for all of the presenters. Thank you for the comment. Are there any Serena is back. Serena, would you like to continue to give your comment? I believe you were frozen before.
Yes, apologies. My internet shut off right as I had to speak. I apologize. I'm on my phone now. Yes, so thank you very much for the presentation. I will say, I mean, I'm getting my PhD and it was a little bit technical. Makes a lot of sense. I do think that SERP committee is going to have to really slow down and be intentional with how we're explaining these concepts. Even the percentiles map, which is just a beautiful, elegant map. Definitely we need to sit with it and make sure we're processing the data correctly. I also appreciate the all the tables with the different like contributions of different sources to Knox and ROG and stuff. I did want to say, I think for those maps to be even just a little bit even more functional, I'm not sure if this should fall to CARB or to us in the SERP subcommittee members, to add some significant landmarks. Highway 99 on all the maps consistently was in the upper percentiles, which again makes a lot of sense, but even just us putting the 99 and labeling that, or labeling the airports, labeling where certain large emission locations are, at least the stationary ones. Again, I'm not sure if that's something to kick back to CARB or we could go in on our own. I think it would really help identify, you know, some of those dark blue sections and where the airport is. You know, we're seeing this here and we're not seeing it here, or PM10 is not significantly attributed to the airport, but it is over here on the, like, just major landmarks, and where we as the SERP subcommittee, but also maybe perhaps CARB, where we already know where there are the large emitters in this region, just to place them on those maps. I think it would just make it that much more clear for us to use, and then as well when we're explaining it to the communities, so it's not just this blocky map.
Thank you for that comment. Just for point of order, we did start the meeting slightly late. We did catch up in our time and met our time for the agenda items. This agenda item has just ran over. We are currently at time. The steering committee could opt to have slightly more time, but just want to make sure we're respectful of everyone's time. We did have a few more items on the agenda that may not be covered tonight. So Lee, did you have any direction on that?
I'd like to extend it another 10 minutes if the steering committee is agreeable to that.
Request to extend it slightly by about 10 minutes. Are there any concerns from any of the steering committee members? Go ahead, Roberto. Roberto, sorry, go ahead.
Do I have to say something?
Is that great?
Oh, it's great. Sorry. Yeah, that's all right.
I'm concerned. Yeah, can we extend it up to like 20 minutes? We have a couple of people from the community who showed up today and want to have some discussion, and I really feel it's important that we include everybody on our committees as well as the community when they show up. So can we extend it at least 20 minutes?
Request to have it extended. How about we do this opposite direction? If you have any concerns, just raise your red hand signal or raise your hand in the chat from steering committee members. If not, we will extend it 20 minutes.
There's a Councilman Richard Lincoln.
Okay.
Richard Lincoln says, "I'm sorry, I have to log off. I need to pick up my son from his basketball practice." I don't think that is a concern of him saying you cannot move forward, but that's just him noting he has to leave.
Correct.
Yes, we do need to know that if there's any steering committee members who have no issue with the extension for 20 minutes but cannot stay, we do need you to make note either in chat or live, because that will change the quorum numbers. With that, then I guess we can extend. We will close out our discussion item A43A and move on to discussion item 3B.
I think you're on 4A now.
Excuse me.
Oh,
3B.
We're still on 3B. Yes.
3B?
Yes.
There is no 3B. We've been on 4. We can do that.
Roll for it.
Yeah, we're good on 4.
So we're gonna do something a little different. Okay. All right, we had a little bit of an activity, where, go to the next slide. That we're on slide 45. This is, sharing back information that you all have seen before in a couple of meetings. This is a list of the community concerns that we have heard over the past few years from the surveys. What we would like to do instead of going through the exercise is that you guys could look at the list and then maybe email us the top 5 priorities that you all have, and then we can report back out what has been the top 5 from the committee. How does that sound? Okay.
Perfect. All right, then that concludes our items, excuse me, our facilitation numbers and our agenda items are not lined up. So that concludes our 4B discussion item. We can now move on to 5A, the outreach subcommittee update. Are there any updates for the outreach subcommittee?
You know. Okay, I'll take the lead. On the outreach, something like Tito said, Stephanie was our lead and she stepped down. So it's brought about a change into the outreach subcommittee. Lori has volunteered to be the new financial responsible person for the outreach funds. So we have to get that coordinated together as well. We talked about doing a lot of different outreach events. One of them was discussed was the CARB presentation that we just, the emissions inventory. And I really do want to just say that I feel it's important that we understand what this is before we go out to try to present it to anybody. And so, and inviting the community to that as well, maybe something that we can put together. And so there are a lot of different things that we talked about with outreach. Like Tito said, we have engaged the community, but now is the time to inform the community again about our CERP monitoring that we've done, as well as the emissions inventory. And so I do have a few things to report, and somebody from the community is here who wants to join and help the outreach subcommittee. And so she's over here. I'm gonna pass her the mic so she can introduce herself. I think she has some expertise in everything we talked about in the last 20 minutes.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Zaida Joaquin Morales. My background is in environmental science and management, and shortly after graduating from UC Davis, I had a great opportunity to work under a CDFA funded program grant, on reducing or evaluating mitigation efforts on dairies, methane emissions. And then fast forward, I worked with the Public Policy Institute of California and their water team, working on topics such as groundwater recharge patterns across the San Joaquin Valley, farm size topics, and surface water availability. Anyway, just a bunch of technical opportunities that I can offer to the steering committee, and it's really great to hear some of the work that CARB has been doing, and also hear that there is some kind of frustration among the communities and being able to access some of this technical jargon that's kind of being given to the communities to understand and make some efforts. So I'm looking forward to working with Vince and the team, and let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you so much. And so she's offered to help the outreach subcommittee. And so that, again, this is an opportunity for us to understand that everybody on our team doesn't have to be steering committee members. We don't have to be assigned and stuff, but I'll be reaching out to her, Tito and Janice, to include everybody and see how she can help us with our ongoing activities. Tito, do you have anything else for the outreach committee? Yes.
Tito, I know you're having we were having audio issues connecting with you. Can you hear us, Tito?
Oh man, loud and clear. Thank you. Every time Vincent talks, I gotta put both ears up. Thank you, Vincent. Yes, you saw my email. You feel our passion. We just gotta do it. We need to reach out to the community that we reflect and we represent. So I'm committed to it. but we got a lot of work to do. Let's get going.
Thank you. Any other updates for the outreach committee subcommittee?
On that side of it as well.
Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item 5, the SERP subcommittee. Do we have any updates for the SERP subcommittee?
I sure do. Okay, so one of the things that Roberto mentioned and we all talked about at the SERP subcommittee is assigning all the steering committee certain tasks, and we're all going to be participating on something in the upcoming months. And so, you can volunteer right now. I mean, I've asked a couple of people to help me with some of the projects that we're looking at, but there's activities that we all need to work on. And Roberto may be able to break down those different activities, but we're all gonna be working on, to get this SERP done on time and target all the different, things that were presented in the timeline. That was one thing. The other thing was that, we've talked about having more than just one meeting a month. And so Janice had a survey going around. I don't know if everybody online got the survey or if they were, submitted yet, but, we're all talking about having 2 meetings a month. And so we were looking at the week of February 10th for the, next month to have a second meeting. That would be after the SERP subcommittee meeting. So I just want everybody to understand that this is the direction we're going, and we're gonna be meeting a little more frequently and talking about, pointed discussions on the SERP timeline. So, most of our discussion at the subcommittee was on the timeline. I'm so happy that we were able to pass it and we're moving forward with that. Some of the, projects that were talked about, like a few of the steering committees have suggested to me were things that we can do, work with, Jaime with the CAP funds. And so we need to submit these ideas. Janice has also said, if anybody has an idea for a SERP, project or strategy, please email her so her team at the Air District can start working on it with the logistics or, help us in the direction that we're trying to go. So those are the things that we talked about at the outreach subcommittee. One of the main important things we talked about was something that Erica came up for all of us to look at, and I'm gonna let her describe it and talk about it. And it's a map of the trucking outfits throughout Sacramento.
Are you able to show it?
Are we gonna be able to pull it up?
Yeah.
While Cody is doing that, I just want to go back to our timeline and in February, we are hoping to have a strategy discussion, education on what other communities have done across the state. And as you guys saw, there was lots of different topics. And what we are proposing is for us to have 2 meetings in February, either Monday, February 10th, February 11th, Wednesday, February 19th, to be the additional meeting in February. And so, we will be sending out, we are encouraging folks to attend in person, because these will be small table activities. So there will not be an option to get this information remotely via Zoom. So I just want to put that out there that, the activities are for in-person only.
Okay, so it's an interactive map. I made it with Google Maps. And what I put on there, by the way, some of the data and the information comes from some of the projects that have come before the South Sacramento Community Planning Advisory Council. They're like truck parking projects or truck management where facilities are, and freight management. And so the P is, these are planned projects, so they're not active right now, but they're in the planning process. And the blue trucks, the blue circles are active truck projects or truck storage. So there's trucks there. And when you actually are kind of playing with the map, if you're over on the left-hand side and you are looking at, yeah, can you just click on, like, maybe, I'm blind.
It says 700.
Yeah, so for example, if you can see where it says 9291 Elk Creek Road, so that's the address of the site, the location. And the 87 PS, that naming convention means 87 parking stalls. And then the little, what they're yellow is it's a shape of the actual site location. And I also included some pictures with each of the locations. And also included the district and the supervisor. Some of these overlap within the city, and so the P is for planned, the blue are active parking projects or truck projects. And the red trucks are potentially not illegal or they're in violation. They just have a bunch of trucks parked on the project, like diesel, big large trucks. And there's three, I thought there might have been another one. Anyways, this kind of speaks to what Serena was talking about, this like added layer of like really being able to visualize and see within certain boundaries. Where some of the diesel particulate matter and where they exist. We could go further and I can update it if anyone's really interested in this or wants me to add to it. I would be happy to do that. But I mean, we could go further and add like Simon's Mobility Center, some of the actual warehouses. So yeah, that's it.
Any other updates from the CERC subcommittee?
Thank you. I pulled up my list of, what we talked about on the minutes and I shared the minutes with everybody. And so one of the things that was on here was, yes, that, we have initiated conversations with, Eric Bissinger with CARB on enforcement of the trucks and possibly doing a swap checkpoint for the trucks. Initially, we talked about, Stockton Boulevard and Mac Road, but in the discussion with them, you know, it's the possibility of doing a spot check. That road is so congested in the afternoons that it would be really hard to do something like that in that area because it's heavily traveled residential traffic. So impeding traffic isn't one of the goals of what we're trying to do, but we are trying to check the vehicles and the trucks especially that are going through there that are meeting the standards for the California emissions. And so we're looking at different areas. I do have a few suggestions for different areas that have high truck traffic. And they're not as congested as that particular intersection is. So if anybody else has so people in the community have said Power Run Road is one of them, right? Power Run and 47th in particular is a high truck traffic area. He had said that they mostly targeted areas on South Watt and Fruit Ridge and or farther out in our boundary, sort of like on the edge of our east boundary is where they did most of their enforcements before. And they're looking at different areas. Maybe we can come up with suggestions and they would help us maybe identify problems with the vehicles, the trucks that are going in these areas, and or maybe they're all in compliance and maybe there isn't a problem. And so it's not like we're causing problems for the truckers. I did talk to some of my trucking friends and they said at some of these checkpoints, if they have problems with their vehicles, it's the only way they can get them signed off is that they pass. And so they look for these I thought they would avoid them, but they actually look for the checkpoints when they need them. So that's one of the things that came from our CERC, and I think that's all I got.
Thank you. And moving on to agenda 5C, district updates.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass this over to Paul Billing to make an announcement about an email you all.
About 2 minutes.
30 seconds. Paul Philly, Transportation Climate Change Secretary, Air District. I wanted to make everybody aware of Caltrans's State Road 99. The state is currently putting together a multimodal corridor system management plan. And the idea is beyond just adding concrete to the highway, are there other ways to get people around the corridor? So an example is when 50 did the new HOV lanes, they also double tracked the Gold Line out to Folsom, and that was part of the process. So getting projects into that plan that are sustainable and desired by the community is ideal because it creates a bank of projects that are ready to go. So on the 19th of February at 5:30 to 6:30, there will be a virtual meeting. The topics are technology and emerging mobility, electrification, human and natural environment, and resilience and sustainability, which I think are topics that might interest this steering committee. So things like mobility hubs, vegetative barriers, other types of things, they would be presenting on their ideas, and if they're off base, you should let them know. So thank you kindly.
Thank you. Any other updates, the district?
Yeah, I'm just gonna give a quick update on, I think you all had discussed a little bit about the monitoring locations. You guys had like 5 priority areas that you wanted us to take a look into. We visited certain, we were able to get into some areas and we were, told no on certain areas in terms of actually getting access, and we have to make an appointment, all of those things like the courtyard. So we're actively looking into it. I might have a better response next month for you all. But we did go out and take a look at whether or not it's like feasible area of power and things like that.
Thank you. That concludes our update section. Any new business quickly for agenda item 6? New business or upcoming meeting topics?
Yes. Go to the next slide, please. Slide. Okay, so we all have a roadmap that we just talked about earlier in this meeting. I just shared a little bit about wanting to have a second meeting in February. I did rotate, put together a survey, and it looks like right now that February 19th works for most people here in the room. I want to take a minute to poll if February 19th does not work for anybody, the steering committee members online. Again, this is going to be an in-person meeting, and I'd like to actually see if the steering committee can make a motion to have a meeting on February 19th.
What time is it? What time is you're looking for the meeting to run?
Or 6 to 8.
I see Morgan has her hand. Go ahead, Morgan. You're muted if you're trying to
Oh,
speak.
sorry, yeah, my apologies. It was for new business, but as far as the 19th, that works for me. But I looked on my calendar and I see that we have a subcommittee scheduled for 6 to 8 on that day as well.
Yes, it is currently scheduled for, we did look into doing on the outreach subcommittee because we knew most people were available during that time as well.
Okay, yep, that definitely works for me.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Mary.
I think I missed part of what you just said, Janice. You said instead of having the outreach, instead have the secondary CERP meeting.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
It would be a steering committee meeting.
A steering committee meeting.
Yeah, instead of the outreach subcommittee meeting, it would be a steering committee meeting on February 19th. In addition to the following Monday.
Just real quick, because if you sent a survey out, I did not receive one. The plan is what? At this point, what is that secondary meeting for?
It is to go over the different types of strategies that information on the different type of strategies that might be available, and to start brainstorming that information.
Thank you for that. Okay, that's what I thought earlier. What was stated was going to happen in the CERP subcommittee meeting. Maybe I misunderstood.
My recommendation might be to continue this conversation offline, just for the sake of time. We've reached our second extended time for 8:20. Apologies again, being a facilitator, I always have to be the one saying the things no one wants to hear. These are passionate topics. We do want to capture all this. Please send in the comments, or we can continue the conversation by email. I want to respect everyone's time. So with that, closing out agenda item 6. Unfortunately, we do not have time for agenda item 7. Again, if you're a public member and would like to make comment, please do so in the chat or email the district. And so that there's a request for a motion, which I know is slightly out of our normal procedures requested by steering committee, but to have a motion to have the meeting on February 19th. have a meeting on February 19th. Co-leads, would you like to make that motion?
Stephanie Williams will make a motion to have a second steering committee meeting Wednesday, February 19th, 2025,
In person.
in person.
All right, do we have a second motion?
Roberto Rizzo says he seconds that motion.
All right. You are now open, the motion carries. We now are open to a vote on whether or not to have a second steering committee meeting in February on the 19th in lieu of the outreach subcommittee meeting.
All right, starting with, we are now ready to vote for the second steering committee meeting, on Wednesday, February 19th, starting with Mr. Chris Baker.
Yes, when is the first one? I'm not looking at my calendar.
February. So it would be February 19th and February 24th would be the two meetings.
February
February
19th and
19th.
February 24th.
It's February 19th is a Wednesday, and then we will have our normal February 24th Monday meeting.
So the 19th will be a first meeting. That can't be the second meeting. Because,
19th will be the first meeting, correct? The added meeting, correct?
yeah,
We already have the 24th scheduled. That's why we're saying it's a second meeting, because you already know about the meeting on the 24th. Starting with, so now we're ready to vote, starting with Bishop Chris Baker.
yes,
Thank you. Tina Hall. Vincent Valdez.
Yes.
Sorry, I mean,
Stephen-
yes. Tito was, yeah,
Thank you,
sorry about
Tito.
that.
Thank you. Stephen Street's absent, or Raina Moreno is absent. Richard Falcone,
Yes.
Richard Lincoln. Okay, it's out, right? Barry Boyd,
Aye. Aye.
thank you, Barry. Thank you, Morgan Brown,
Yes.
thank you, Lori Walker,
Yes.
thank you, Roberto Rizzo,
Yes.
thank you, Jamala Green. Serena Rodriguez,
Yes.
thank you, James Allison,
Yes.
Stephanie Williams is a yes.
So we had a few steering committee members leave. Jamala Green is no longer in attendance, as well as Richard Lincoln is no longer in attendance. We now have 10 yes votes, the motion carries.
All right, thank you.
Vote carries.
Okay, all right, are we good?
Yes, the last comment, just real fast, just to remind everyone of our charter and agreements. We confirmed, but their audio system was having some issues. We apologize for technical difficulty, but both feedback from others online as well as our own Zoom chat line says that no one in the meeting was hard to hear for any particular reason other than the audio issue. So just want to once again reaffirm that and apologies for any events related to that matter. With that, we're now open to closing the meeting. So we don't.
Yeah,
Can extend it.
you can. Just, is there anybody here that has a public comment? Well, once, twice at a time. All right, I just want to just be, all right. Excuse me? Morgan Brown, Morgan.
Sorry, my apologies. When we first started the updates, I was trying to make it really, really quick. I just did want to update the event that we had this past weekend that the Air Quality District was actually a great success. I want to say that we had around 200 people to attend the meeting. Oh, sorry, to attend the event. And from some of the feedback that we got, they are looking to actually, from a lot of the community resource vendors that we had out there, they actually are looking to see if we can do things like this more often and have more environmental events. So I wanted to bring this up, and we'll mention in our next outreach committee meeting for us to actually do maybe monthly air quality meetings at the park, because we had a lot of really, really good feedback and a lot of good attendance for that community in South Sac.
All right, thank you. All right, and so now we are going to adjourn. We're getting ready to adjourn this meeting. Before I adjourn, I just wanted to say thank you to all of our steering committee meeting members, our air district staff, CARB staff, our local agency, people who came out, members of the community who stayed the extended time. We really appreciate your support. And with that, we are going to adjourn the meeting with our, what do we want? And we say South Sac Clean Air, and then you'll be dismissed. What do we want?
Southside clean air.
Southside clean air.
Damn, that was just me.
Thank you, and the recording.